Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. I hope you enjoy your coffee break. I think some of you are still enjoying the coffee break, which is good for me, less questions. So, good. Well, also thank you for the organization, especially Brian, for answering all my emails during these last weeks. So today I'm going to talk to you about the simulation of an assisted evacuation in hospital. This work was a part of a research project I did at the NFPA in Boston. Okay, fire evacuation in hospital is a complex phenomenon that requires a well-defined strategy and effective execution. This strategy normally involves the assistance of patients which are not capable to evacuate by themselves. As we all know, the computer evacuation models are powerful tools that has been developed for simulating different evacuation strategy. However, their flexibility has shown that we can apply these models for other kind of scenarios such as transportation modes or such as even larger scale evacuation. This model has been especially developed for simulating the self-evacuation instead of the assisted evacuation. So, in addition, there are not too many papers, not too many works done in this field. Okay, the available studies agree about the need of distinguish between two types of patients. We have the ambulant patient and non-ambulant patients. So in general, the assisted evacuation is different from the self-evacuation. Every patient will have their preparation times that depends on the type of treatment. For example, these preparation times can include the disconnection from the medical equipment. They can also include the movement of the patient from the bed to the wheelchair or other devices such as stretcher or blankets. So this pre-preparation time also include the common pre-evacuation activities that we can find in other models such as the get dressed or gathering belongings. So also, in these cases, the healthcare personnel will be responsible for moving this patient, and in many cases, they will be responsible for transport them in case of a fire evacuation. So with this paper today, I want to show you the capabilities of the two well-known models, STEPS and Pathfinder, to simulate an assisted evacuation in hospitals. After proposing a model strategy, to adapt those two models, I will apply steps for an hypothetical hospital floor plan for a sleeping area. Okay, in our paper we are going to differ between two types of occupants within the hospital. Healthcare personnel, as I said, these persons will be responsible for moving or relocate the patients during a fire evacuation, and patients. Also, if we talk about patients, we need to differ between three types of patients based on their mobility. Type A, which are ambulant patients with reduced mobilities. Type B, which are non-ambulant patients that need to be evacuated by using wheelchairs. And Type C, non-ambulant patient that needs to be evacuated with stretcher, blankets, or other kind of devices. These Type C patients, they may include the time to be disconnected to any medical equipment in the scenario. Please note that in this paper we are not considering other occupants. We are not considering doctors, visitors, or other staff, and we will see this in the following slides. So, in summary, and based on our occupants, the assisted evacuation in hospitals can be mainly defined by a number of parameters in terms of evacuation modeling. Okay, so, as we will see now, some of these parameters are a bit different from the typical parameters that we can find in a model. First, we have the pre-evacuation times. That is the time required by the healthcare personnel to start the movement to the first patient to be evacuated. After that, we have the pre-preparation time. That is the time required by the healthcare personnel for preparing the patient before start the evacuation movement. Obviously, this preparation time, as I said, it depends on the type of illness or the type of treatment. Also, we have the unimpeded walking speed. This is the walking speed of each healthcare personnel moving towards a patient or returning to the next patient. And finally, we have the transportation speed. This is the walking speed that the healthcare personnel has while they're transporting the patient or walking with the patient. Okay. As I said, there are a limited number of papers in this scenario. So these tables here present our proposal for the input parameters when we want to model this. Some of the, as you will see, these parameters are obtained from a literature review, so you will be able to find all the reference in my paper. Apart from that, some of these parameters, such as, for example, the preparation times, the literature only gives us a range of times. In this case, what we have done is to assume a mean value, and the mean value of this range. We have assumed a normal probability distribution function, and we have assumed a standard deviation of 3 sigma. Okay, regarding the evacuation process in healthcare facilities, this is a defined strategy established normally in the emergency plan of the hospital. It can be assumed that at least one person will be in charge, and that person, in case of fire, will define the evacuation procedures. So that person will define which rooms needs to be evacuated by which healthcare personnel. Based on the number and location of patients, each healthcare personnel will relocate them. So we can assume that all the healthcare personnel are gathered in one point and they will receive the instruction there. So the emergency plan at hospital normally is defined by a triage. The aim of the triage is to get as many patients out as possible. So this default priority may assume that the first patient to be evacuated are those patients in immediate danger, which are more close to the fire. The second patients to be evacuated are the ambulant patient, which is type A. The third patients to be evacuated are patients requiring some assistance, for example, using wheelchairs. The fourth type are type C, which are the patients requiring more transport, probably a stretcher, blanket, or similar devices. We also have the fifth type of patient. Those patients are who can be under treatment in the moment of the fire, and these patients are difficult to evacuate. For example, this patient that could be in the ICU or in bariatrics. So in this case, we are not focusing this last group. They will have a specific requirements, and we are going to analyze the evacuation modeling for this initial four type of patients. Okay, as I said at the beginning of this presentation, the current evacuation model are mainly developed for simulating self-evacuation, not assisted evacuation. So, how to model or how to calibrate the model to represent this kind of evacuation depends on the model itself, but also it depends on our understanding of the process. So with this paper, I would like to present a model strategy for modeling that. This may not be the only process that we can do with these models, but this modeling method has been successfully applied by the NFPA in order to analyze a possible increase of these small compartments in healthcare facilities. In addition, in the following slides, I will apply this methodology, general methodology, to the two well-known models, STEPS and Pathfinder, and we will see how we can apply this to an hypothetical hospital plan. Sorry. Okay, we have the first steps we are going to do is we are assuming that all the personnel are gathering in one point and they are receiving the information about which room they need to evacuate, which is the evacuation order. Second point, we are assuming that two personnel members will assist one patient, and we will represent into the model this as one only agent. Each agent has his own pre-evacuation time and impeded walking speed. Once the agent has started movement to the first room, they will go there, and he or she will wait a time equivalent to the preparation time. After this preparation time, the agent will transport the the patient with the transportation speed to the place of relative safety. Once the agent has reached the place of relative safety, the agent will move towards to the next patient. So, step 2 and step 6 will be repeated until the last room has been evacuated or the last patient is in a safe place in case of fire. So, how we can apply this with the steps? Okay, we all know STEPS. STEPS is a well-known model developed by Von McDonald, and it was initially developed for simulating buildings, so it doesn't present any limitation if we want to build the geometry of a hospital. Regarding the human scenarios, okay, each agent in STEPS has certain attributes to represent the human action and decision. Regarding the occupant's behavior, steps allow us to directly implement the pre-evacuation times into the model as a pseudo-random variable. Also, unfortunately, we cannot directly implement the preparation time, but we can calibrate this into the model using delay points in each room or each point where the patient would be. Regarding the occupant movement, we need to take into account three different aspects, three different parameters: the wayfinding, which is the evacuation priority, the unimpeded walking speed, and the transportation walking speed. We can calibrate the model to represent the wayfinding by defining by using the function checkpoints. We can locate checkpoints in every room where the patient would be, and checkpoints in the final destination. That way we can move the agents from one initial point to the final point and go back, etc. So we can directly implement the unimpeded walking speed, as you know, as a pseudo-random variable as well. In order to calibrate the model to represent the transportation walking speed, we would need to define the evacuation route that each agent will follow, and we will need to assign a decreasing coefficient. The idea to apply this decreasing coefficient is that the model doesn't allow you to move or to change the walking speed if it's not affected by geometry, or by a block, or by the number of persons. So this decreasing coefficient, what it's going to do is to reduce the unimpeded walking speed in order to represent this transportation speed. Okay, this figure summarizes the idea of how we can do that. We have first the checkpoint 1, where all the personnel will be gathered and they will receive the instructions, so they will know, each agent will know where they have to go, which room they need to evacuate, and which is the order. So after waiting there the time equivalent to the pre-evacuation time, they will move to the checkpoint 2, following with their unimpeded walking speed, and after waiting with the delay point for the time equivalent to the preparation time, the agent will move to the place of relative safety, which is the checkpoint 3. Once, they will move, being affected, they will move, follow the evacuation route, and they will be affected by the decreasing coefficient, as we said earlier. So once in the final location, or the place of relative safety, the agent will travel to the next room, to the next patient, which is the checkpoint 4. As you can see here, the agent will follow this methodology until they have reached the last room or the last patient, and they have evacuated. In that case, they will finish the simulation. Okay, how can we apply this with Pathfinder? Well, also, as you know, Pathfinder is also a well-known model. It's mainly applied for buildings. Please take into account this analysis was done with a previous version. I know that the next version is going to include more applicabilities for the assisted evacuation, which is going to be great for this work, so thank you. Pathfinder consider two sets of parameters, occupant profile and occupant behavior. Regarding the occupant's profile, we can directly implement the unimpeded walking speed as a pseudo-random variable as well. Regarding the transportation walking speed, we can calibrate this into the model by defining speed modifiers in certain areas. When we talk about the occupant's behavior, we can easily implement the pre-evacuation times directly into the model as a pseudo-random variable as well. when we want to define the evacuation priority or the wayfinding, we can use the function go to room to define where the patient will be, and the go to way to define a final destination that is considered as a safe place. So regarding the preparation time, we can calibrate the model by defining the wait function into the go to room function into the room. Okay, once again, and really fast. This is how we apply this with Pathfinder. As you can see, it's quite similar to steps. So we have all the people in the initial location. In this case, we have assumed that this the nursery station. They will where they receive the instruction. They will wait there the pre-evacuation times, and after that, each agent will travel with their NMPD walking speed to the go to room 1, and once there. They wait with the wait function for the time equivalent to the preparation time. After the preparation time, the agent will travel to the go-to way, which is the final destination and a place of safety, a place of relative safety, being affected by the speed modifier, so we can reproduce the transportation time. After that, they will go to the next patient. So again, we will repeat this until the last agent or the last patient has been evacuated and safe in the final destination. In this case, the Pathfinder requires that, or in this case, we have simulated that the simulation has finished when they have reached the final destination, and the final destination is defined as the exit. So, with this model case study, we are going to present how we can apply this methodology with steps. Please, this model case was extracted from the project I did at the NFPA. If you need more information, the reference is available in the paper. So, but to give you an idea, the project tried to analyze again the importance or how the increase of a smoke area can affect to the evacuation. That's why this hypothetical hospital plan has this strange, we can say strange. Okay, in this case we are considering 4 smoke compartments. As you can see in this figure, all the smoke compartments are connected. We have 18 rooms in each of these smoke compartments. 14 rooms are single occupancy, 4 rooms are double occupancy. Please note that this hospital was considered in the US, where you need to pay for the medical treatment, so not too much people you can find. I mean, if you compare with the Spanish hospital, you can find more double occupancies rooms, but in this case it's more limited. So in total, considering this, we have 22 patients. In our evacuation scenario, we are assuming a fire in smoke compartment 1. That leads to the evacuation of patients to the smoke compartment 3, 2, and 4. We assume that they will be evenly distributed into the smoke compartment in order not to cause a big impact in the rest of the smoke compartments. So we have assumed that there are three type A patients, 4 type B patients, and the rest is type 3 patient. I don't remember the number. So we are simulating 3 different scenarios. The first one, we simulated 6 emergency group. As I said, we are assuming that 2 healthcare personnel will be assisting every patient. Scenario 2 with 4 emergency groups, and scenario 3 with 3 emergency groups. Okay, based on the location of the patient, based on the location of the fire, and also based on the triage system, this table shows us which is the evacuation strategy for every scenario and for every emergency group. In order to catch the variability of the use of the probability distribution function, I ran 100 simulations for each of these scenarios, and as you can see in this table, obviously, as we can suppose, the number of healthcare personnel is a key parameter in case of fire or in a healthcare facility. As we can see, if we compare scenario 1, which is for 6 emergency group, and if we compare scenario 2, which are 4 emergency group, the evacuation time increased up to 12 minutes. Also, if we compare scenario 1 and scenario 3 with 3 emergency groups, the evacuation time increased up to 29 minutes. Okay. As I said earlier, 2 types of patients are identified in hospitals. We have the healthcare personnel and the patients. The evacuation procedure in hospital normally follows what is defined as the triage. We have identified the key parameters that are required in assisted evacuation, the pre-evacuation time and the unimpeded walking speed that are related to the healthcare personnel, and the transportation speed and the preparation time, which are the parameters that depends on the type of illness or the type of patient in general. Our evacuation models are mainly developed for simulating the self-evacuation process, but they are flexible enough to allow us to represent other kind of scenarios. In this case, our assisted evacuation. Based on our model strategy, steps, Pathfinder has been calibrated to simulate an horizontal evacuation in hospital. Okay. In this table, we can see which parameters can be directly, or we can summarize which parameters can be directly implemented to the model and which parameters can be calibrated into the model. Both of them can directly implement the geometry, and both of them can directly implement the pre-evacuation time and impeded walking speed as a pseudo-random variable. In addition, we would need to calibrate the model to represent the preparation times. We can do that with the delay points with the steps and with the wait in rooms within Pathfinder. Regarding the evacuation priority, or we can calibrate this quite easy with the models by using checkpoints in steps and using go to room in Pathfinder. And finally, with the transportation speed, we can calibrate this into the model by using evacuation routes in Pathfinder, assigning the decreasing coefficients to their velocities, and using speed modifiers in certain areas with Pathfinder. So our case study shows us that the possibility of this modeling, this calibration method with steps. So conclusion, steps and Pathfinder models are flexible enough to be calibrated for and used for an assisted evacuation in hospital. Both models can represent the geometry, as I said. However, steps is a model based on a grid, so the cell size should be taken into account. Both models can simulate the pre-evacuation times and the unimpeded walking speeds of the healthcare, and can be calibrated for representing the evacuation priority in case of fire. The models attribute delay points with steps and wait with Pathfinder represent the preparation times of patient in each room. But we should take into account that wait is the wait function with Pathfinder is now a deterministic input instead of an stochastic. Steps defines an evacuation route, assigning a decreasing coefficient to the walking speed in order to represent the transportation time, but we also should take into account that this require us to assume which routes every agent will follow. Pathfinder allows us to use the speed, allow us to calibrate the model to represent the speed, the transportation speed by using speed modifiers, but once again, we will need to assume and we need to represent to know which areas will be used and will be walked. So with this, I finished today. If you have any question, I'll do my best.
Thank you. Questions? Okay.
Thank you, Virginia. That was absolutely fantastic. Just a quick question. Did you account for the fatigue associated with assisted evacuation? So you had the 3 cases, and obviously depending on the number of people in each team and the number of repeated evacuations, of course, your first scenario would have had a small group of people doing many, many trips. So have you accounted for that at all, and is that a future consideration?
I haven't, but it's a good point. I mean, I've been thinking about that because it's quite necessary, especially if they're moving stretchers and people or whatever. I haven't done it, but I have a few ideas how can we do it, and I think it's quite easy to implement in the future development of these models. We can talk with Pathfinder to do it.
Brilliant. I look forward to a discussion later then. Thanks.
Anyone else? Any other questions? Yes. Okay.
It was a very nice presentation.
Thank you.
What do you think are the advantages of using simulation tools for these cases against a simple queuing statistical calculation that you can use in a spreadsheet? Because we are not talking about crowded areas where you are using unimpeded speed, speed walking speed.
Yeah, okay. Well, I think the main point of these models, or I think is the main point of all the evacuation models, is even when in this case some of the parameters are quite deterministic, most of them are stochastic. Obviously, we cannot know which are the behaviors of the people. We cannot know how much time they will require that the healthcare personnel will start to move. So these models allow us to represent this with a random variable. The hand calculation with a spreadsheet can... Also, another important point is we can run this 100 times. It wasn't too hard. It just takes me like a couple of hours. Pathfinder is pretty good. Also, as you know, steps allows you to do the batch run. But you can analyze a sample of results. The spreadsheet is just a deterministic analysis of the problem, and obviously we cannot know where's that. However, there is too much we need to do with these models, and I think it is really good to see that Pathfinder is taking into account this problem, that these models are not really developed for that. And even when you can apply that, and even when you can calibrate in somewhere, you are playing with the model. It's not really realistic. When we have the ability, especially for the transportation time, the transportation speed, when we will have the applicability or we will have the option to directly implement it into the model as a random variable, I think the models will improve considerably. And I think all the clients and everybody will probably take into account these models to use that. It's not really time-consuming. Well, talking from my academia part, it's not really time-consuming. So I think that gives you a better and more confident response, also because you can use percentiles, not just mean time. So it's more confident. At least I feel more confident with that.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, a couple of points. One is, have you considered what happens at night when the staffing is very low?
Oh, sorry, I haven't seen, but the application case is during the night. That's one of the reasons why we don't consider doctors, and we don't consider, sorry, I didn't see that. The idea or the application methodology is based on the work I did in the NFPA, and we agree about using the night, where the staff will be the lowest.
And the second point is, your pre-evacuation times are similar to those we saw yesterday of around a minute. That seems hugely optimistic to me, considering
Yes.
if many hospital patients are older, are often taking medication at night to sleep. And I think my own parents, having been in the hospital, the idea of getting them out of bed when they're fast asleep and having taken some medication in 70 seconds just seems hugely optimistic.
Yeah, I'm totally agree. There are not too many works done with that. Obviously, I can understand that it's almost or just impossible to do drills within the hospitals, but I think it could be a really good exercise for those who can do that, to do more experiments, more data, even drills in those countries where you can do that, if any. But I'm okay. These are just a proposal. The aim of this paper is to show an overview of how can we do it with the models, but I agree, the data could be quite limited or uncertain.
Thank you.
Anyone else back here before I go? Okay. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much.